right, welcome. My name is Lee Karaoke. I'm one of the coaches here, and what we're going to be doing in this video is literally just going over what is called a funnel audible. And what a funnel audible really is kind of think of it like a checklist, right? Like almost like a checklist or a final look over before you get to launch your funnel. Right. So we're literally going to go over what are the key things to pay attention to as you're going through your funnel before you get to launch, because plenty of times we get excited about launching and we'll launch and then there's plenty of mistakes. And then if we don't catch those mistakes, worse, our potential clients catch those mistakes. And then it could be detrimental as far as our abilities to actually start building this list. So the first thing we're going to focus on, remember, by now you should have at least, you have 3 pages in your funnel. You have a squeeze page, a thank you page, and a privacy policy. And it's really important that you understand the objective of each page. And then what is the key thing? Like, what are the hot buttons? What are the key things you need to pay attention to? And is your funnel actually taking care of all those 3 things? So the first thing on the lead magnet, right, which is the squeeze page, and this is where your potential prospects literally give you their name and email, right? The first thing we're going to look at, and you'll hear this all the time, the headline, right? The headline. The first thing you want to ask yourself is the headline clear enough? Is it communicating what is the payoff, right? Plenty of times we'll try and get pretty creative. We'll try and go in and lead with curiosity, which is great. But then sometimes too much of that creativity or too much of that of that desire to impress actually may work against you, right? So the first thing you want to ask when you come to your lead magnet is your headline communicating the payoff or the desire, or echoing what the feeling of what your dream customer is experiencing, right? And is it more geared towards them, or is it more geared towards you, right? So headlines, you have access to funnel scripts. You should be able to go in and literally use funnel scripts to come up with great headlines. But if you're short on time, or you don't have access to funnel scripts, which is free, there's free access, or for some reason you don't feel like going to funnel scripts, a great way or a great headline to use is how to X without Y, right? How to get X without Y, you know? And that's it's simple. It still works. It's been working for many years, and it'll still continue to work, right? How to X without Y, right? In Z time frame. Right? So how to X without Y. And the more simple your headline is, like remember, when the person lands on this page, the first thing that's on their mind is, what's in it for me? You know, what am I getting out of this, right? Is it going to increase my status? Is it going to reduce my status? Is it something that I've seen before, or is this completely new, right? The next thing is the image, right? You want to have some kind of image, right? And I would recommend you simply just use this template, right? This template is a reason why Russell shares this template, is because it works, right? So next thing is use an image. It's the best place to literally use an image and come up with great images. You can literally hire someone, you know, to create these images for you. You can go to Fiverr.com. You could go to Upwork.com or Guru.com, or you could go to Canva, Canva.com, Canva.com. It's great. It's actually created for creative people who are not great at design, right? It'll crank out decent images that you can literally use on your funnel, right? And then the other thing too is you want to give them some context of what is it that they're getting, right? So it could be free, instant access. Hey, give them some context. Build that desire, right? Because you're asking, a lot of times we approach this like, hey, it's just an email. They're just giving us an email. It's not costing them anything, right? But when you look at the deeper sense of things, right? When you look into what it's really costing them, they're giving you access to their attention. They're giving you access to be able to follow up with them, right? So it's not just an email, it's literally a form of payment, right? And I think the more you can visualize that this person has granted you access so that you can now communicate with them, you can start building the relationship, you would want to value that access, right? So make sure you give them some context hey, give them some context about this lead magnet, right? A couple of questions that they may have is, hey, how will this lead magnet be delivered, right? What does this lead magnet look like? How long is it going to take to consume it? And you can literally, if you don't have the space to literally address all those questions that they may have, that's why you literally have the scroll button. So this first half of your squeeze page is literally called the prime real estate, right? And why we call it the prime real estate is that most people will make a decision based on the top half of this page, right? The top half of this page is literally how they make a decision. If all the good stuff is down here, right? And this half is not communicating or giving them enough of the elements that they'll need or enough of the information that they need to make a decision whether to give you their email, then you probably need to go back and look at this, right? And really focus on this. And I would say almost 80% of the weight is going to be carried by the headline. So the headline is pretty much almost the entire page, right? And the headline, the best of headlines are talking to the desire. You know, they're talking to the desire, or they're exposing what is flawed with the mechanism that they're currently using, right? So you're talking to someone who's probably a little bit aware of the problem, and you're showing them, hey, you know, if you're still experiencing this problem, this could be the reason why, right? And you're trying to articulate it in a way that's easy to understand, right? Easy to understand. Don't make it complicated. Follow the script. You know, just simply use funnel scripts. Funnel scripts is great for headlines. And then crank out the headlines. And the good thing about this is that if for some reason you believe that you could probably come up with a different headline, the beauty about ClickFunnels is that you can go in and create what is called a split test, right? So you can duplicate from the same page, right? From the same exact page. And then now you can come in and ask ClickFunnels, hey, I would like to split 50% of my traffic to go to the control and then 50% to go to the variation. That way you can test multiple headlines, right? So you can test more than one headline. That way you can literally go back later on and look at your stats and see which one of these two headlines is actually giving you the leads, right? Which one of these two headlines is giving you the leads. So that's the first thing as far as the lead magnet, right? Or the squeeze page. You'll hear it's called the squeeze page. The lead magnet is what you give in exchange for the email, right? And then the squeeze page is literally the page where all the action happens, right? So that's the first thing. And then the other thing too, you want to, that's functionality. Right? Actually, we're talking about the communication piece, right? So there's three parts when you're doing an Audible. The first thing is it sound judgment? Is it going to connect with the dream customer? Are you calling out the dream customer such that when they land on this page, they know you're talking to them, right? It could be attention, attention marketers. Here's how you can get more leads without paying more money in advertising or without losing your shirt in advertising. So typically those work really well. Call out your avatar. Let them know why they're having this problem. Or it could be, hey, if you think that's the old problem, this is the new problem. Or if you think that's the old, if you're still struggling with this solution, you probably because you're using a flawed mechanism, right? So give them some context of what is the payoff, right? And then the subheadline. So the headline is to capture the attention and get them to read the subheadline. And the subheadline is literally to strengthen the headline, to give them some context, right? So it could be, hey, attention marketers, this is a free report shows you how, free checklist shows you how you can get more leads without spending more money in advertising, right? So that's the headline. And then the subheadline could be something like, this is without the thing that they don't really like, right? So sometimes a great headline could also be what it's not, what you already expect it to be, and you tell them what it's not. How to lose 10 pounds in 10 days without diet and exercise, right? And this does not include fasting. So the subheadline could be, this does not include fasting, keto diet, or any kind of shenanigans you've probably been exposed to, right? So the headline is to make a point. What is the point, right? What is the point of this page? Why should they be on this page? The subheadline is to strengthen that point, right? And then the image is to increase the desire. And then, of course, you have arrows, and you can give them a little bit of context of what it is that they're getting, right? So that's the first half. The second half is literally for those people. Remember, for the first half, most people will already make a decision whether they want this lead magnet or not, right? The second half is literally now about strengthening. It's all about now strengthening those non-believers. They probably have further questions like, how does this work? How is this going to be delivered? How much time is it going to take for me to actually consume this, right? Does this really even work, right? So a couple of those things. And remember, it's a lead magnet, so you don't need to go into so much detail. It's literally, hey, do you want this thing or don't you want this thing, right? And the more you try and sell the lead magnet, the more you're creating suspicion. So literally, there's some elements that you need to address, like, what is this thing for them? What is it going to do for them? And then how do they get a hold of it? Like, simple, right? And then for those people who are probably on the fence, you can give them a little bit more context, but don't go into so much detail such that now it feels like, hey, it's creating suspicion. You just want to give enough whereby you give them enough context so that they can do what? So that they can literally give you their name and email. Right? And then if you're in doubt, remember, if you're in doubt with your headline, because headline is pretty much the stake, the majority of how this page is going to be performing, right? So if you're in doubt, create a split test, right? Create a split test. Create a split test and then get to see which one of the two is actually giving you more leads, right? And then so that's as far as just as far as the communication piece. The other piece is about the functionality, right? So you also want to make sure that when people give you their name and email, right? First of all, make sure the button here should be the set action should be not scroll to the, well, this one is for the bottom, right? But this button here should automatically, this is an image actually. So let me give you an example. So the button that's being used should automatically collect the name and email, right? When they click, it should automatically collect the name and email and take them to the next page. So the set action here should be submit order, submit form, right? Which means that when someone puts in their name and email, they put their name and email, it should automatically collect their name and email, right? And then, and the option to pick is make sure you set the action to submit order, submit form. If you select go to website URL or go to the next step in the funnel, that does not collect the email that they share with you. So make sure you set it to submit order, submit form, right? Now these templates are a little bit different because I think it's already it's already embedded, so you don't have to worry about that piece. All you have to do is just put in your email and then click on the button. And then it should take you to the next piece, right? So that logistics, make sure settings too, you have integrations of where do you want this email to go to, right? Which list do you want it connected to? So make sure you have your integration here. So you can, if you're using ClickFunnels, you can simply just say, hey, connect this to ClickFunnels, right? Internal, connect it to a list, right? And then that you select the list. If it's external, you can say, hey, whether it's Webinar Jam or MailChimp or whatever your third-party email integration is, you would go ahead and connect it there. So those are the key things to look out for. And like I said, there's the functionality piece. Functionality is as far as, is it doing what it's supposed to do? Meaning if someone gives you their name and email, are you collecting their name and email in the list that you want to put them in? Right? So that you can now have that email sequence going out. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, are you communicating the essence of what the payoff is for them to be on this page, right? So those are the two key things. And then on the thank you page, literally the thank you page is where you deliver, right? This is where you deliver the outcome. This is where you get to deliver the outcome. So the thank you page is literally, hey, you can go ahead and download now. So that's as simple as that, right? Squeeze page, hey, give me your name and email, give me the goods, make sure your headline is making sense, making sure you have the image here, Make sure you have a sub-headline, right, to strengthen the headline. And then you can have these bullet points here to give them some more context, right? And if you use funnel scripts, literally all this is done for you, right? All this is easily done for you. And that's pretty much it. Now, a couple of metrics that we want to make sure we're addressing. For the squeeze page, literally you're shooting, and this is very, very conservative, and it may vary from market to market, but conservatively, you're looking for at least 20%. 20%, right? 20%, meaning out of every 100 people, at least 20 people are signing up, right? And that's extremely conservative, because the idea is, if you're talking to the right person who is experiencing the pain that you're addressing, then it should be a no-brainer, right? Now, not everyone, if you get 100%, there's a problem, you know, that maybe you're attracting the wrong type of people, because that's extremely high. Like everyone that sees the page is signing up, that's problematic, right? And then if you're getting less than 20%, maybe you need to work on the headline. But if you're showing it to the right person, and this person really does have the desire or the pain point that you're addressing on the lead magnet, then at least conservatively 20% of people should give you their name and email, right? The other thing too to check in on this page is make sure you have your footer bar, right? At the very bottom, make sure you have your privacy policy that's going to be linked to your privacy policy page, right? And the reason why you need that privacy policy page is because of the networks, right? The ad networks. Some of them will go in and they'll be like, hey, you know, they'll disapprove your ads, you know, and the reason why is because you don't really have a privacy policy. So make sure you also have the privacy policy embedded on your page. And it's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy to add a privacy policy. All you have to do is just go in and at the very bottom, you know, and they should be here, right? There's a link here, but you would just come in and put in privacy policy and then tie it in, right? And then tie it in, link it up, right? So privacy policy. And then you can literally just link this and put the URL of the privacy policy page from your funnel. So that's all you have to do. And that's pretty much it. So I'll also go ahead and just add a checklist of all the things to make sure you're actually crossing them out before you get to launch. And then hopefully after you launch, you know, once those emails come in, you have a follow-up funnel whereby at least you have the communication going out. But as far as just the funnel, two things is the performance of this funnel is literally going to be based on, I would say the bulk of it is going to be based on your headline. Make sure your headline is making sense. How to X without Y. If the worst came to the worst and you really don't have time and you're crunched for time and you really need to get to launch, how to X without Y is a great headline. How to X, which is the payoff, and without Y, which is the thing they don't want, the obstacle, right? How to X without Y. And if you can improve on how to X without Y in Z time frame, that's even better. So thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and now you can use this video to literally go back and look at your funnel and see where you're missing, what you're missing, and how you can improve it. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.